In this video, we're going to compare Solid Edge and SolidWorks when it comes to creating first the hole feature and second patterns. So let's get started with the hole feature. Create a hole. 3 types of holes. I'm just going to select the regular hole. This gives us an option to get started out with. If we have something saved, we can just select it from this list. That's a fantastic option. I'm going to go through the options dialog just to show you what that's all about. Okay, this is the whole options dialog. What it's not saying to you is that you need to select the type first, and that's from one of these 5 options. Then you can go on to the second option, which allows you to select a standard and a head type, which they call a subtype, and then set up the hole extents and make sure that all of the dimensions are proper. You can use the fit to establish the tolerances. If you create a hole you're going to reuse later on, click on the Save button and it will be saved to this list that we saw before. It should be grayed out down here because we're not creating a thread, we're creating a counterbore, but you have the options to specify your thread and how it will be displayed, even your thread direction. And you can place chamfers on the near and far end as well as the neck of the counterbore. So I'm just going to create a simple number 10 hole for a socket head cap screw and say OK. Now the next step it wants us to go to, you can kind of gather that it wants essentially a face to drill the holes into. So we'll click on this face. The next thing it's looking for us to do is to place the hole. We can do one of 2 things. We can place a single hole and then pattern it later, or we can place multiple holes right here and then dimension them individually. So I'm just going to place one hole and then pattern it. Click the green check when I've got the hole where I want it, and from there I'll say finish and cancel. The next step in our process here is to use a pattern, and so I'll click on the pattern button. Solid Edge brings up the pattern command bar, and we can select the pattern type: rectangular, circular, long curve, or pattern by table. Those are good options. I'm going to start with the rectangular. And there's 2 ways to do this. I'm going to show you the hard way first, and then I'll show you the easy way. The hard way is to use this pattern by sketch. This is actually kind of the traditional way that Solid Edge has made patterns. Solid Edge users will probably keep using this, but SolidWorks users are going to be very confused by this method. Anyway, pattern by sketch. The first option is to select something to pattern, and we want to select a feature. And the selected element is the feature that we want to pattern, so I can pick that from the Pathfinder or from the graphics window, either one. So I'll click on the hole from the Pathfinder, and then you've got to click this little green check. The little green check kind of hides on you, and you might not see it immediately. The next step is a sketch, and a SolidWorks user is going to be very confused about why you're sketching in the pattern command. We just go ahead with it and click on a plane to sketch on. That's going to be the plane where we want to create the pattern. Solid Edge has kicked us automatically into a sketch tool. We told it we wanted to create a rectangular pattern. What it wants us to create right now is a rectangle, but it's not a rectangle from this set of tools. If you use this set of tools, it's going to throw the whole process off. What you have to use is this, okay? The rectangular pattern sketch, essentially. We can click and drag this out. Stagger options just gives you an offset pattern. Down here, the fit type means that you're going to establish an overall height and width, and Solid Edge is going to automatically fill in that with the number of X and Y instances, or as Solid Edge calls them, occurrences. So that's the fit. The fill will fill an area with as many features as it can, and the fixed is going to allow you to specify the distance between individual pattern features. Now, SolidWorks user is probably going to be looking for the linear pattern option, and they don't have one in Solid Edge. If you want a linear pattern, you're going to have to change one of these numbers to 1. It's not going to show you a real linear pattern. And then you click the green check, and you're done. So that's the difficult way to make patterns in Solid Edge. Let's delete this. So let's go back and create another pattern. This time we'll use the quick pattern, and this is a newly added option in Solid Edge. Again, we want to select a feature. Notice I selected the wrong thing. I got the protrusion instead of the hole. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit and make sure I get the hole, then hit the green check. Okay, it wants me to do the rectangle, and it has snapped it right to the center this time. So now I'll drag out my rectangle, and it'll come up with dimensions, so I could key in an overall dimension here. And if I slip this little dialog out from behind the command bar, I can key in another value in here to make this 3 and put in a number here, call it 4.5, and make sure that these other things are the way I want them to be. If you want to specify the spacing, we can do that here. So I'll key in 1. Make sure this option is set to fixed. Key in 1 for that spacing, 1.5 for this spacing. And now we're going to go through the same thing with SolidWorks. We'll hit the hole wizard here, and it's asking me for a hole type first of all, so I'll hit the counterbore. Next, it wants a standard ANSI inch, good. Screw head type, so I'm going to get the socket head cap screw, and the size, number 10, fit, normal, some various options. And now it wants me to talk about the positions of the holes. We can make multiple holes in a single feature or use the pattern later. So we're going to make a single hole here and then a pattern. SolidWorks gives us the option to create a 2D sketch or to use a 3D sketch to put holes on multiple levels. So we can create either a new sketch or select an existing sketch. I'll just pick this face and place a hole right here. I could put dimensions on it. This gives me the option to skip instances. I don't know why I'd go ahead and create additional instances and then skip one of them. Doesn't make any sense to me. You can also create a sketch if you want to. We've got our one hole. That's all we wanted. It's a lot to go through for one hole, but there it is. And now we get to do the pattern. This looks like a lot more options than what Solid Edge gives you, but it's really not. It's really all the same options, just put here into a drop-down list instead of in the property manager itself. Okay, so let's do a linear pattern. Direction 1. This is one thing I like a lot better in SolidWorks than in Solid Edge. If you have an edge or a sketch line or an axis, you can establish a parametric direction for the pattern much more easily. So I'm just going to select this edge, and the spacing along that edge will say 30 millimeters. And how many instances do we want along that direction? Well, we'll put in 4. And if there is a direction 2, then we can input it. If not, we don't have to. Symmetric just means that the pattern direction is directly opposite the first direction. So that's an interesting option that Solid Edge didn't have. And again, you can establish a direction for direction 2, tell it to go the other way, tell it you want your spacing to be 20 millimeters instead. And if it turns out you really only want a one-directional pattern, then you can clear this edge from the feature. Down here, we're given the option to select features, faces, bodies, and whatnot. And we click OK to accept the pattern. If we were to make a circular pattern, the first thing we would have to have in SolidWorks is some sort of a center. And this is where the Solid Edge method has the advantage, because you can sketch in a circle here, give it dimensions, and go on your way. But SolidWorks expects you to have something done beforehand. So I'm going to sketch a circle. We'll put it right here. Once I've got the circle drawn, now I can create an axis using this face and that point. And from that set of items, I'm able to make a circular pattern. Click on this axis and features, click on this feature. And to get the feature, you really have to get a face of the feature rather than an edge. And SolidWorks defaults to selecting edges, especially if you're zoomed further out. And notice one of the instances of the whole of the pattern goes off the part, and Solid Edge will give us an error if this happens, but SolidWorks doesn't. So there are a couple of areas in here where Solid Edge is the better tool. In particular, this error message and the circular patterns are just easier to do in Solid Edge. But for the most part, patterns are much easier to control in SolidWorks. The new Solid Edge interface, in my opinion, just requires a little more work than what they've put into it at this point. So overall, for holes and for patterns, I give the advantage to SolidWorks.